Hello and welcome to Nottingham, city of legend and lace, and the headquarters of this year's Lombard RAC Rally, the final round of the World Rally Championship. The rally gets underway just after dawn tomorrow. The cars have 1,900 miles to run in total, with 375 of those miles being on the special stages, where of course the cars race against the clock. And this is still the only round of the World Rally Championship where the drivers don't have the benefit of the so-called pace notes, the notes that warn the driver of the shape of the bend that's coming up, because the crews aren't allowed to practice on the special stages beforehand. So it's still very much a unique event. For the fourth year in succession, Lancia have dominated the world rallying scene with the sheer speed and reliability of their Delta Integrale. After winning the Monte Carlo rally in January, they went on to win 6 more rounds of the World Championship, a truly stunning performance. So this is what the World Manufacturers Table looks like as we come to the Lombard RAC. Lancia there, 56 points clear of Toyota in second place, with Mazda, Audi, Mitsubishi lying third, fourth and fifth, separated by another 20 points. So Lancia are clearly unassailable, but as we forecast last season, the Japanese have made a real impact this year. 3 out of the top 5 there, each having won 1 round of the World Championship. Let's move on now to the Drivers' Championship, again dominated by Lancia, with Miki Biasion, the leading Italian Lancia driver, having clinched the world title when he won San Remo in October. So this is what the Drivers' Table looks like. Miki Biasion well clear, 41 points ahead of Alex Fiorio, also in a Lancia, with Didier Auriol and Michael Eriksson tying for third place with 50 points. Juha Kankkunen at present lying fifth, but if he were to win the Lombard RAC, as indeed he's tipped to do, he would move up to second place. And it's worth pointing out that only 2 drivers in the entire history of the event, Juha Kankkunen and Miki Biasion, have won this Drivers' Championship 2 years in succession. Now, a short while ago, our fast-talking Tony Mason met up with an even faster-talking Miki Biasion in a small Italian restaurant.
Well, Mickey, we thought that 1988 was a pretty good year, but 89, even better.
Yes, it's like a wife. The first is good, the second is better, but no, okay. I'm very happy to be for the second time world champion. And everybody was thinking at the end of 88 that I was tired, and so I leave my leadership to some other one driver. It was not easy, because it's never easy, but it was a big satisfaction too.
Tell me about the different rallies.
Well, you know, I think that I have done a good thing to win in the same season the Monte Carlo in the snow, because the weather was quite bad the first 2 days, and after I won in Safari in the sand and in the fog of Portugal. So
that gave you great satisfaction.
Yes, I think it was a big satisfaction.
The Safari rally, it's very unusual for Europeans to win it, but you have actually won it twice.
Yeah,
in 2 successive years.
You know, Lancia tried to win Safari for 19 years, and after with my participation, 2 times winning, it means that they have a good car, and I have done a good training before, and I prepared very well the car, the Delta, for the victory.
Now, you're the first Italian motorsport world champion driving an Italian car for 35 years or something, since Ascari. What is life like for you as a champion in Italy?
Well, I'm never in Italy because I'm always around the world to test, to practice, to do rallies. But, okay, when I come back home, I have a lot of friends and people that bring me like heroes. But when I'm at home, I am the normal boy that they find 10 years ago when I don't drive. I don't used to drive.
Now, you keep on winning the World Championship on the San Remo rally, so at this rate we're never actually going to see you here on the Lombard RAC.
Yeah, I should like to be here like driver, not like a champion tourist. But I think that in the future I will be here for sure for driver, because I like very much to drive in a secret rally. Also, if I have never done that one, but sometime I like to drive without page notes.
Have you never driven a secret rally?
No, never, but I think that must be very exciting.
So that's the only thing left for you to do now?
Yeah, but in the future I will be here for sure.
Well, I'm sure we all can't wait to see Miki Biasion driving in this country. But it won't be this year, unfortunately, because Lancia have decided not to enter any works cars Instead, they're going to concentrate on testing the new 16-valve Integrale to cope with the Japanese onslaught for 1990. But let's look now at the top 10 seeds for this year's event. The number 1 spot goes to Juha Kankkunen. He's the hot favourite to win this rally. He was the youngest ever world champion in 1986 and the first driver to win it twice in consecutive years. He last won here in 1987 in a Lancia. He's had 2 lean years since in the Toyota Celica GT4, although he won the Rally of Australia in September. Number 2 is Ari Vatanen, who last won here in 1984 when driving for Peugeot. Ari has driven in 70 World Championship rallies and won 10 of them. In last year's Lombard RAC, he coaxed his troubled Galant right up until the penultimate day of the rally, when he was forced to retire with engine failure. 27-year-old Carlos Sainz is one of the new breed of Latin drivers now emerging on the world rally scene. He's a superstar in his own country and has been Spanish rally champion for the last 3 years. He finished 8th last year, driving a Ford Sierra Cosworth. And in the Toyota Celica GT4, he could be the surprise of this rally. Timo Salonen was the winner here in 1986 when he drove the Peugeot. And last year, he was the runner-up in the Mazda 323. Kenneth Eriksson retired on the very first stage last year with a blown engine. Despite a year of mechanical problems, he was 2nd in the Rally of Australia and 4th in the Thousand Lakes. This is his last drive for Toyota before moving to Mitsubishi. Definitely a man to watch. Hannu Mikkola is the grand old man of rallying. Now 47, he's won the Lombard RAC a record 4 times, and he's competed in 110 World Championship events, winning 19 of them. Perhaps the most successful driver of all time. Last year he was leading, with only 5 stages to go before he stood off on the ice. This year he's back with the Mazda 323. Malcolm Wilson is the highest seeded British driver and the only one with a world-class A rating, which he won when he and his co-driver Ian Grindrod were 3rd in New Zealand.
Malcolm, you're obviously our big hope for this week.
Well, I would like to think so. I'd like to think we were the leading 2-wheel drive car. I don't think we've any chance of really winning the rally. But you know, if we went anything like it was going for us last year, we were sort of the leading 2-wheel drive car right up until we had our problems. So yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it.
When you're driving 2-wheel drive at the moment, are you taking more chances?
I think so, and you're looking all the time to sort of find the best places on the road where you're going to get the most traction. You know, traction is a critical thing. And all the time, you're not just sort of concentrating on the drive, you're actually looking for the best line out of the corner to, you know, with the least mud, etc., where you're going to get the most grip. And in a 4-wheel drive car, you don't need to bother about that so much. But I mean, hopefully this time next year, we'll have a 4-wheel drive car at Vauxhall.
The Austrian, Sepp Heider, drives the new 16-valve GM Eurosport Opel Kadett, built in Milton Keynes. He's current German rally champion. Finally, there's 43-year-old Per Eklund, one of the most popular drivers in rallying. The veteran Swede has driven a huge variety of cars in his long career. This year he's driving a privately entered Lancia Delta Integrale, in which he came 2nd on the Swedish rally. Right, those are some of the big international names, but there's always been a big following in this rally for the homeboys, who've been battling it out in Britain all the year. 1989 has really been the year of the Welsh, and 2 people in particular, David Llewellyn and Gwyndaf Evans, have made their mark. David Llewellyn became British champion when he won the Audi Sport Rally in October. Tony Mason went to see him on his farm in Haverfordwest.
Well, you've got plenty of space down here in Pembrokeshire. I suppose this is where you learnt all your driving skills, is it?
Yes, you know, it's perfect ground for learning. Wet grass is like very much like ice, and it was perfect ground for learning how to control a car when it goes into a skid, and of course becoming natural to do so.
What age were you then when you started driving?
I would have been about 8 or 9 when I was left to drive on my own in the fields, but of course I did under supervision start perhaps a little bit before that. But you know, it's plenty of space and it's safe enough for a youngster to go out and learn about it all himself.
So when did you actually get an interest in competition?
Another little deal with father at the time. I was starting to drive the farm machinery too quickly around the farm, and he could see this, and he said to me, look, it's dangerous. You're getting dangerous driving the tractor so quickly because, of course, they can turn over so easily. If I buy you a go-kart and take you to the circuits to race, will you stop driving the machinery so quickly? And, of course, I shook his hand, and that's how my motorsport started in karting.
Karting was shortly to give way to rallying. Richard Llewellyn's faith in his son's driving ability was soon to be justified. In just 10 years, David, with co-driver Phil Short, was to win the Audi Sport Rally in the Toyota Celica and clinch the British Open Championship.
Well, now you've got this beautiful farmhouse here and Sarah to look after you, so things are looking pretty good.
Yes, it's changed. My fortunes have changed since I first started, obviously. I struggled through national championship days, and without the support from my family and many friends, I wouldn't have got through that. I was loaned a car to finish off the championship in '84 when I actually managed to win the championship, and I think that opened the doors. Winning the national championship really did open the doors, and of course along came the offers with that. One from Austin Rover, one from Ford, and one from Audi. And of course, you know, Audi were the kings then, with the four-wheel drive Quattro, of course, and Shell Oils came in and supported me as a second driver to Michel Mouton in '85, and that then was my big break into international rallying.
You mentioned Austin Rover. You were actually part of the fantastic Metro team, weren't you?
That's right, that came the year after. I joined Austin Rover in '86, as you mentioned, the year of the Metro. I had ups and downs in that year. Of course, very much an up was winning the first international for the car in the Circuit of Ireland. First international for myself as well, so of course I had many fond memories of that. But going then on to the next round, which was home in Wales, of course the tide turned a little bit, and I had a lot of pressure on me coming home to Wales and having just won my first international, and everybody was behind me and did put a lot of pressure on, and I wanted to win. I wanted to win or don't go back to Cardiff for the finish, and I'm afraid I didn't end up going back to Cardiff for the finish. We ended up 60 foot down a hillside, which wasn't a very nice experience, but hopefully I've learned by that.
It's certainly a very busy existence you lead. Sarah, does he actually have any time for farming all this, or is he just a gentleman farmer?
No, when he comes home, he does settle down to some hard work, because it's very different for him. Obviously, rallying is a bit of a high life, and people think it's all very exciting, which it is, of course. But then when he comes home, it's a lot quieter life, and pace is a lot slower, and there's a lot to do on the farm. We've got a suckling herd, a small suckling herd, which we're just starting. I've also got a few young calves which I'm rearing, which he helps me with as well when he's home. The children, of course, are glad to see him when he comes home, because they don't see him, you know, he's away quite a lot, they don't see him. His nieces and nephews, they all sort of come down to help on the farm when he's home as well. We grow a bit of cereal and barley for the cattle for the winter, so it all keeps him quite busy.
So all this farming keeps you nice and fit then?
Well, it does. I mean, it is an outdoor life, and it's fairly energetic if it's just chasing the sheep. But I do play squash as well, which I think is good for my sport. It's eye and arm sort of coordination. It's a very quick game, and you can play 40 minutes and have a lot of fun. And it keeps your awareness and your sharpness, which you need in rallying, quick reactions, very, very alert. And I find that very good for my career.
Well, now you're driving the Toyota Celica GT4, and probably it's your best ever opportunity of winning the Lombard RAC.
I would like to think we've got a realistic chance of coming in the top three, and with a bit of luck, being able to win the event. I mean, it's very difficult for a British driver. You know, it's something that they always want to do, is win the RAC rally. But the car has been very, very successful on gravel this year, and I think that, you know, we will have a good chance just with a bit of luck. But I must say that, you know, part of this is down to the team that's behind the scenes in Pontralis that prepare the car for me. Phil Collins and his boys have done a smashing job at sorting the car out and making it reliable, and you know, I owe part of my success to that.
What is so different about this car?
I think that it's the transmission that's so different to any other rally car I've driven. It's quite a complex, electronically controlled bit of kit. I can vary the torque split from front to rear, and you can sort of
adjust it to your driving style, front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive with the torque split to front and rear. And it's the first four-wheel drive car that I've been able to handbrake. Handbrake turn, I mean to flick the back of the car around very quickly at a very tight corner. And this is done, again, electronically by, when I pull the handbrake, there's a little electronic switch which puts all the power and the brake into the rear wheels and enables me to get around very tight corners. So that's very unique to this car. And once you can understand it, it's very simple and by far the easiest four-wheel drive car I've driven.
Further north in the Principality, the inhabitants of the tiny village of Dinas Mawddwy await the arrival of the school bus, driven by another star of this year's Open Championship, Gwyndaf Evans.
This is a pretty unlikely job for a rally driver, Gwyndaf.
Yes, but I'm not a professional rally driver, and you know, rallying is still a sport for me, and this is my normal day-to-day job. I drive the school children to school from Dinas Mawddwy to Llewellyn, and then I go to the family garage during the daytime.
And do you find that there's a different technique required?
Well, obviously you get a lot more time to think about things, and you don't quite have the same power.
It was obviously very difficult getting started.
In the early days, my vehicles were very cheap motor cars, and the actual event itself costed in approximate £200 an event. So that wasn't too bad, but you know, it's still quite difficult. But it's escalated enormously now as I've gone on to international rallies. You're talking in excess of £10,000 an event now. You know, by the time you pay the accommodation, the tyres, the fuel, the car preparation and everything, it mounts up enormously.
Hi, girls.
Now, you're a very good mechanic, Gwyndaf. Do you think that's helped in your rally career?
Yes, I think it's been an advantage to me. First part of my career in rallying, I used to build and prepare the vehicles that I rallied myself personally, and obviously that helped in keeping the cost down. And as I've progressed onto international rallies, it's helped in having some technical background in sorting the vehicle out. And what I basically mean in that is sorting the springs and damper ratings and actually getting the car to set up and drive as you want it to drive.
What does your family think of all your exploits?
They're a bit tense, obviously, when I'm on the events, but I think there's a bit of proudness there as well.
What's it like having a famous person drive you to school every day?
Well, he's going to be Wales's #1 rally driver. And he's going to be on the leaderboard in the RAC, definitely, and the Audi. He's a very professional rally driver now. And he's a good laugh to be with anyway.
I'm sure that all of Wales will be certainly cheering on the event next week, and probably the loudest cheers will come from the children from the bus.
That's right.
Well, Gwyndaf, the bus obviously believes in catching his supporters young, and why not indeed? But let's look very briefly now at some of the other 190 competitors, all of whom have a very real chance of making their mark on this rally.
Benji, you've had a very good year and won the Group N Championship in Britain. What is the difference in the technique of driving the Group A car?
It's quite a lot harder because things happen quicker because you have a lot more power, and you also got the 6-speed gearbox, so instead of making 5 possible mistakes, I can now make 6 possible mistakes. But it's certainly harder to drive, but far more rewarding, of course, because of the watch likes it.
It's a technologically very advanced car, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel steering. Does that have any bearing on things, the forward steering?
Well, I think in the testing the four-wheel steering has worked all the way, but sometimes the fifth wheel is not working so well. So that's what I have to concentrate to do better. But it is certainly the car which goes through the corners extremely fast, and so hopefully we can do a good job.
Ah, the famous McRae family, father and son. What are the tactics for next week?
Well, I think I've got to beat him.
Never got to beat him.
The amazing thing is, of course, that you're both in identical cars. Normally, Colin's been driving a slightly slower standard Group N model.
Yes, so now time will tell. You know, whether he keeps saying he's quicker than me, but I don't think he is yet.
How do you like this rally, Jim?
I think there's something about the RAC, there's an atmosphere that you don't get in any other rally. I think it's just the end of the season for Ash, it's the last World Championship rally, and there's just the atmosphere that you don't get anywhere else.
John Haugland, you've made a habit of winning your class on the Lombard RAC. It's always been with the rear-wheel drive Skoda. Now it's front-wheel drive, the favourite. What are your chances?
Well, the chances should be good, really, because the car is a good bit quicker than the old one. It's a front-wheel drive car, and it's quicker around faster corners, but maybe the old one was a little bit quicker around very tight bends because of very good traction from the rear engine. This traction is not so good, but still it's going very well.
You've had tremendous success around the world, 100 class wins in total. How difficult was it to change to front-wheel drive?
Well, not really so difficult. You just have to adapt to control it a little bit differently, but just to get them used to it, no problem.
Louise, you've made the headlines. You've been on our programme a lot in the last 2 years, but you haven't finished, of course, so different tactics?
Well, luck's got a lot to play with it. You know, obviously if your luck's in, you're gonna do well. But sometimes you can be unlucky on just very small things, and it can put you out of the rally.
You've had fairly lonely drives for the last 2 or 3 years, but there's quite a few more girls coming along now. Have you noticed that?
Well, I think that's good. They're also having a World Championship for lady drivers, which is excellent, really, because the opportunity is there now, so there's no excuse.
So in a few years' time, we may see more females than men in this event.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but we'll just have to get the manufacturers all interested and keyed up for it.
And we shall be keeping a special eye, of course, on our very own Liz Jeffries, who won the Radio Times Rally Press competition this year. She's driving a work-prepared Astra, and we all wish her the very best of luck. Let's move away from the drivers for a moment to some of the unsung heroes, a huge band of organisers who have to get this immense show on the road. Running this rally is a bit like running a military operation. And Tony went to see just what does go on behind the scenes with Nigel Drayton.
Well, this year there are 11 regional organisers involved, and each of us has around about 20 people who help during the lead up to the rally. That includes chief medical officers, somebody looking after the communications, the rescue, and also, of course, staffing, the provision of marshals. Actually, on the day, we have a number of stage commanders, each of whom has his own team. On each stage we have 2 rescue vehicles, 2 recovery vehicles, and then of course spread throughout the stage we have as many marshals as we can. This year we should have in excess of 12,000 marshals spread out over the whole duration of the rally, which is obviously a considerable number to be found.
Well, where on earth do you find all these people?
Well, most of them come from motor clubs, from the RAC registered motor clubs, and of course we also bring our friends and relatives and everybody that wants to be involved, and we're delighted to see people come out on the rally.
And are these marshals all paid?
No, indeed, they're all volunteers. Every one of us who's involved is a volunteer. We do it for fun, for the love of the sport.
One of the most important aspects of the rally is timing, of course. Now, how's all that organised?
Well, we have a team of specialised timekeepers who take the clocks around the country. Every evening before the start of a leg, back in the hotel, the timekeepers have over 100 clocks to set. They have a special setting panel which they use. It's an infrared device and it attaches to the clock, and allows them to set the clock to the second by synchronising the time from Tim. On the day, the timekeepers deliver the clocks to the special stages. Each stage has a set of 8 clocks, and 4 of those clocks are indeed backups. At the flying finish, we have a special sort of clock. It has a printer attached, and as each competitor comes past that location, the car number is written against their time. This can be used then in the case of disputes or, in fact, for record purposes later on.
Now, the medical services are very important. Tell me about those.
Yes, we have over 120 doctors out at various times during the 5 days of the rally. Some of those doctors will indeed do the whole rally. They'll take a whole week's holiday and come out and they'll do a special stage every single day. And they have radios on the RAC's rescue frequency, and they're in touch with these other safety services which are on the stage.
Now, there'll be over 2 million spectators out watching this event, and clearly it's a dangerous sport. Have you any tips for spectators?
The most important thing is to stand in a safe place. Rally cars move at very high speeds on loose surfaces and they tend to throw stones, so don't stand on the outside of bends. Stand well back into the tree line and be safe.
And let me pick up that point about safety, because thumbs up for safety is the motto of the entire rally this year. We're all going to be wearing these little badges. Everyone wants, of course, a superb event with no accidents. Right, the first cars cross the start line sharp at 7:45 tomorrow, and instead of the usual ceremonial start here in the city centre, and the cars then motor off to a special stage somewhere, it's on from the word go when the cars plunge across that start line at Woollarden Park, just down the road from here. Let me briefly sketch out the shape of the first 5 days. The first day is spent in the East and West Midlands, doing 8 special stages in parks and country estates, very accessible to all the spectators, before the cars overnight in Telford. On day 2, they have an early start, and then 15 difficult stages in the Welsh forests that always seem to cause some dramatic changes of fortune before they return to Nottingham. On Tuesday, the rally turns north with a long haul up through the Lake District and the Kielder Forest to an overnight in Carlisle. Day 4 takes the cars into southern Scotland and then back down through Kielder to Newcastle. And then on the final day, Thursday, they have 11 stages in North Yorkshire before coming back to the finishing line here in Nottingham. And this is the nerve centre of the entire operation, the control room here in Nottingham. This is where the state of play is kept constantly up to date as the news flashes in fast and furiously from all over the country. Over the next 6 days, this room will be thronging with journalists from all over the world, all, of course, clamouring for information. Our coverage starts tomorrow morning at 10:30 live from Chatsworth Park with a roundup programme at 11:30 p.m. on BBC Two, giving all the day's events. Thereafter, we have 2 programmes nightly, one early, one late, both on BBC Two, with the final programme on Thursday evening, our normal Top Gear slot, 8:30 p.m. on BBC Two, of course. But let's leave you this evening with a driver's view of Chatsworth Park, as seen through the eyes of those old mates, Roger Clark and our own Tony Mason, the last entirely British couple to win this very tough event. See you tomorrow morning.
And 50 water splash. And 100 easy right, fast and jump. 100 easy right, flat and 100 care. Easy right opens. 100 right past a junction. Care, big rocks on the inside.